all nice.
Yeah, they redid it. We decided to make a little stop off at the old Pioneer Cemetery. That, funny story, I didn't even know this place existed until we came and looked at that snooty house last year, and we drove by this and you're like, hey look, there it is. Oh my gosh, they cleaned it up. I was like, yeah.
And I seem to have forgotten anyways. Look at that view from the cemetery.
I know.
No hunters have been buried here.
What about Fulmer, Pace? I didn't see any Bartholomew.
So,
Or
there
Warner.
used to be broken headstones all over the place.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they cleaned it up.
I wish I would have taken a photo of it before.
I want to say it was Daughters of the Utah Pioneers that did it. Pioneers were buried here between 1851 and 1866 when this cemetery was abandoned. P-A-C-E, Pace.
Great.
So you're probably related to them.
Hannah Eliza Simmons Pace.
So
Mary
this...
Ann Pace. Mary Maria Pace.
Okay. So this cemetery was abandoned in 1866. James Higginson was sexton. The bodies of those who remain here are Sarah Holt Tyndall, John Hardison Red, Elizabeth Hancock Red, Mary Gardner Sweeten, Helen Wytock McKell, and the following children: Mary Catherine Red, John Holt Red, Mary Mariah Pace, Mary Ann Pace, Lucy Ann Bowen, Julia Susanna Bowen, Mary King, Phoebe Justin Darger, Orrin Thomas, infant son Raymond, and about 35 others. So there's no names on the headstones.
They're just little headstones all over.
Just because I don't think there's any way to know.
No, there used to be headstones, and some of them were even quite large. Like there was a giant one in here, actually.
Oh no, I believe that. I'm just saying I wonder if this is just because the
I think they couldn't restore them properly.
yeah, let's say because they couldn't restore them, so just to make it nicer. Early settlers in Spanish Fork took care of their family burials with the aid of friends and volunteers. The winters were severe and often the ground was frozen hard. Those assisting with burials had to clear snow and sagebrush, mark off the grave, then make and tend a fire that would burn all night to soften the ground. The first burial in the Pioneer Cemetery was Mary Catherine Red in 1851. Some of the people buried here were later moved to the Spanish Fork City Cemetery. In 1866, a sexton was appointed to start keeping records of burials, which were already being made in the city cemetery. That view is gorgeous. Helen Wytock McKell was born in Scotland. She married there and her husband died, leaving her with a son to raise. She then married Robert McKell and together with her son emigrated to Utah. Brigham Young called Robert and Helen to enter into the practice of polygamy. Within days of the polygamous marriage, Helen became ill and died. That sucks. Her husband's journal said that she was buried in the old cemetery on the brow of the bench land near the Vincent farm in the river bottoms. So I don't think they removed her body, but they moved her headstone to be by her husband's in the new cemetery. In the spring of 1854, Mary Ann Boyce took a Native American child, Alpharetta, into her home. Alpharetta was brought to her by the child's father after his wife died in childbirth. She took care of the infant along with her own infant son, Alfred. Alpharetta soon died of measles and was buried here.
Wow.
And then she and her husband were called to settle Camas. While traveling to their new home, their wagon was surrounded by a band of angry Native Americans covered with war paint. A brave, Alpharetta's father, recognized Mary Ann, got down from his horse, and convinced the chief to let them go in peace.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. That's a neat statue. I love that. Oh, sorry. I just totally hit the wrong button. I stopped the video instead of... No, you're fine. Early settlers often faced multiple deaths and burials in one family. On May 5, 1851, John and Elizabeth Hancock Redd's 17-year-old daughter, Mary Catherine Redd, suddenly became ill and died within hours. She was buried on this bluff overlooking the river bottoms. John and Elizabeth suffered another loss as their 15-year-old son was thrown from his horse on November 15, 1853. His heartsick mother died 3 days later. Then on June 15, 1858, John Hardison Redd died after being kicked by a horse. All 4 members were buried in the Redd Cemetery, now known as the Heritage Pioneer Cemetery. It's also been called the Old Palmyra Graveyard, the East Bench Graveyard, and the Upper Cemetery. Aww.
It was on your birthday in 1871.
Yep. Settlers to the area built some of their first homes directly below this cemetery. Many settlers dug into the ground or hillside for shelter during the winter. There were once so many dugouts built in this area that Spanish Fork was known as Gopher Town.
So back when I visited the cemetery as a kid, it was kind of sad, but there was a lot of little kid gravestones and baby gravestones.
I believe it. "17 months old. Tia was the last person buried here. It's the very last burial. Little 17-month-old baby who died July 31st. To the dead who were laid to rest here, we say, we remember you. We remember your name. We remember your bravery in the face of hardship. We remember the babies who died in your arms. We remember your pain and tears. We remember all you gave up for us. Yet we also remember your joy and your boldness to begin anew, in spite of the trials and hardships. Because of you, we also desire to find new courage to move ahead with our lives in spite of the challenges we face today. Because of you, we remember spring follows winter, and a new dawn always follows even the darkest night." Talk taken from a talk at the redirection ceremony. Beautiful words. I see.
Can you read it?
They've lain upon the hillside nigh 100 years, those true, devoted, fearless souls, those noble pioneers. The shadows of the Wasatch Peaks, the sun sets in the west, falls gently down to help preserve a place of sacred rest. We'll sing and make the welkin heaven ring in praise that still endures, the memory of those faithful souls, those noble pioneers. They crossed the weary, trackless plain, they fought the Indians bold, they dug the sagebrush from the vales, which now our eyes behold. They brought the water from the streams to irrigate the soil, they claimed a desert wide and wild, those super souls of toil. We'll now rededicate this spot to peace and sacred rest, and pray our God a watch to keep so nothing can molest, until the resurrection day, when they come forth and stand among the hallowed chosen ones, immortal pioneers band. Edna G. Brockbank wrote this song to the tune of Auld Lang Syne for the original dedication, November 14th, 1943. Cool little pit stop, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Daughters of the Utah Pioneers did this.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
You counting them all?
17 that are still buried here.